Hi, this is the road connecting. On the other side, we have a mining village called Leibi, and if we go around half miles from here, we'll have another road, which is the Asian Highway Road connecting More along with Imphal, and that also connects India with Myanmar and Thailand. So today we're gonna find out some of the bunkers and camp where Japanese forces, Japanese soldiers way back in the Second World War stayed here. So we'll be going right at this hilltop, right this side, and we'll find out some of the dugouts and some of the trenches built by the Japanese forces, which was later occupied by the British forces. So let's go. Right, this is the road connecting towards the upper hill. So this was constructed probably by the Japanese, because Japanese were there at the top of the mountain building a big camp in order to protect themselves, shield themselves from the British forces. This was one of the big camp. Behind the camera was also one camp. So this place was a big camp constructed firstly by the Japanese forces during the big World War II. So today we're going to go up that side and we will find out some of the trenches, some bunkers constructed firstly by Japanese and then later occupied by the British forces. And today we're going up there. Let's go. Right here, we are almost at that place, and I'm going to show you those hills. You can see far off, those hillocks or the hills we can see there are not Indian territory but Burma, Myanmar territory. So basically we are near the border of India and Burma, India-Myanmar border. So I'm going to showcase where at one point of time Japanese forces occupied this place, stayed in this place. So it's near the India and Myanmar border. We can see the beautiful landscape over there is Myanmar. So we're going to see the exact place where the hideouts and bunkers are located. Yeah, this is right. This was one of the bunkers or trench built by Japanese forces. This was the place where they hid. They protect themselves here from the upcoming forces. This side or this side basically. This time it is quite already filled up due to the debris coming in for almost 50, 60, 70 almost years. So this was the bunker where they stayed with guns, protecting their forces, protecting the Japanese interest against the British forces. So this was quite deep. Now it is still to the lower level of my hip. So basically our first Japanese were here, and then later the British forces captured this spot and made this place one of their very own, making it one of the big camps set up by the Japanese and later occupied by the British forces. So this is the trench. You can see this. It's quite still to the level of my hip. So as we can see, this is a trench. The trenches, even here, there's another deep trenches. So this was dug up basically by Japanese forces during the onslaught of the Second World War. So still it is still to the level of my hip. So back in the days it was very deep, and as time passes with the debris coming up, it is getting filled up, but still very prominent till today, 2020 October. So another here, and I'm going to show you more that side. So this was one of the meant camp for the Japanese forces during the war. And later, after the Japanese forces retreated, it was again occupied by the British forces. Many times we found lots of bullets, lots of guns, lots of bullet carrying cages, and lots of, even we found tin fish, Japanese tin fish. Maybe they forgot to eat or something, or they left in hurry, something like that. And many things we found, the remnants of the war. So another pit here, and it was one of the plot for my my forefathers. So after the coming of the war, they left this place basically. So this is one of the pit, and there are many pits like this. So it's quite of a historical site. And there we can see another pit there. It's quite clearly seen. So there. So this is another pit, a hideout pit for Japanese as well as the British forces. So this is the pit. This is another small pit. It's quite prominent still. So the pit, remnants of the war. So this were one of the hideouts, the trenches built by Japanese forces during the war. So these are one of the pit. And these are some of the trees planted by my forefathers who stayed here, who resided here before the beginning of the war. Before the war, so this was one of the pit dug by Japanese own hands, built by Japanese, made by Japanese before the war, in order to shield themselves and protect themselves against the onslaught of the enemy forces. And later on, after the Japanese left this place, the British forces occupied this place for many years to come again, until the end of the war. So this is one of the important historical place to ponder upon, to think upon, and especially if you're a party to the war, this would be a very nice place to think about. Right, this is another, even there, you can see there, that side, lots of bunkers, there, bunkers. This was a place where lots of bunkers and protective area, protection against the invading enemy forces, first by the Japanese forces and then later occupied by the British forces. Right here we are at hilltop along the India-Myanmar road, about 7 to 10 kilometers away from the international border. We're taking these visuals. Right, so a reminder to all the Japanese, especially the Japanese, that once their forefathers have fought. Right, quite coincidentally today, while filming for this video, we found this grenade. We're not sure, is it a Japanese grenade or British grenade? See the sharpness of grenade. See this grenade. The iron is still intact. The half part of the grenade. I think this grenade was blown up by either the Japanese forces or the British. So it's still intact. Half of the grenade is still intact. So it can remind us vividly about how the war was fought, how the battle was fought, how Japanese forces fought against the British forces. This was a battlefield. This was a ground where the two forces battle out their strategy, battle out the energy that they have against each other. So eventually, after the Japanese were nearly on the brink of the collapse, they left this place and went back to the territory, to their country. So folklore has it that my grannies narrated that the Japanese people were quite friendly, quite similar with our culture, the way they eat, the way they behave, and they were quite friendly, they say. So what we read in history book is different altogether. So it is said that the Japanese forces were the more polite one, based on the historical oral narration we got from our grandparents. So keeping that in mind, so what is important is that this place, we are at the hilltop. Behind the camera is also one, in fact, 3 towers of mobile company, so which depicts that this is one of the highest spot along this road. We're 7 to 10 kilometers away from international border, India-Myanmar border, and we are right at the very place where Japanese once built up, Japanese once built their armory, built the bunker to protect themselves from the onslaught of their enemy British forces. So guys, that is the end of the video about the remnants found in this place, about the Japanese and British forces fought during the Second World War. So guys, if you like this video, please
like, share, subscribe
the channel. Thank you.